Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, CJ Duncan. We are so glad to have you back. Um, I know we went into last weekend, I know I did at least, with a lot of confidence about where Auburn and Alabama stood. I felt very good, very comfortable about who they were and who they were going to be throughout this season. But I feel like I left last weekend having more questions than answers. But before we get to that, I want to introduce our guest. Before we dive into that, our guest today, man, it is really a privilege to call him a friend. He is a native of Coleman, Alabama, a University of Alabama great. He has been honored with multiple All-Americans and All-SECs. He was drafted by the San Diego Chargers in 2005. He also spent some time with the New England Patriots. He is a father of two and husband of Senator Katie Britt. He is currently working with Fine Getty. Wesley Britt, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, man. It's an honor to be on here with a great CJ Duncan. Boy, this is fantastic. I'm blessed. I am blessed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. We know you're an incredibly busy guy, so we thank you for making time for this podcast. Before we jump into the 2024 season, I want to take it all the way back to senior year at Coleman, right?
Oh, we're going back.
We're going way back. So tell me this, why Alabama? Why did you choose Alabama, and what was your recruiting process like?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. It was first of all, there's nothing like high school football. I mean, we're sitting here Friday. It's unbelievable the pageantry of the amateur sport of kids playing for the love of the game and going out there as a group of young men just excited to be part of a team. And speaking of that, and I think it's also important that we recognize Morgan Academy and Caden Tellier as they go back on the field, as they head back on the field after losing Caden. That was something that touched all of our hearts and something we all related to. Uh, Whether it was us playing or we know somebody playing or our kids who are playing. I have a son that is playing varsity football right now. So that's something that really hits home that in our thoughts and prayers being with Caden's family and the entire Morgan Academy family this week as they go back on the field. But and going into my recruiting process, going to Alabama is that was my life playing for the University of Alabama and putting being able to drape that crimson jersey, the same jersey that Cornelius Bennett, Joe Namath, Bart Starr, so Derek Thomas, so many just great players were able to do it. For me to be able to do that was such an honor. Uh, but it wasn't. But it wasn't always that I wanted. My goal wasn't always to play. I actually grew up being an Auburn fan. But as we know, we don't tell too many people that,
Right.
but that's just, it's the facts of life. And we think we have a plan, God laughs. And he has a better plan. But going into a senior year, and I wasn't starting out, just come from Coleman, rural Alabama. Wasn't and you didn't have the internet like you do today. You didn't have all the chat groups. You didn't have all the different sites you could post reels on the huddle accounts. And so I'd say I started getting really recruited hard going into my senior years this summer. Actually going out, my mom, dad loading up the Suburban and taking me and my brothers and a couple of friends to football camps, going around the southeast to different camps, and that's whenever I started getting noticed. And I think my first offer was actually in Gainesville, and Steve Spurrier brought me and a couple of my buddies up to his office and offered me on the elevator, at the Swamp in the stadium, and
Wow.
that was. And that's hard to turn down when Steve Spurrier makes that offer.
Absolutely.
It really was. And then I went to Auburn, Alabama camps and received offers there as well. And when Florida, Alabama, and Auburn offer, especially back then, Florida was the pinnacle. In the late '90s, it's then more offers started coming in, and then going into my senior year. But quickly it was going to be Alabama, Auburn, or Florida, and And we went into that senior year, and then I got a call from Auburn, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, that if I didn't commit, that they were going to rescind my offer, and didn't think I would. Frankly, didn't think I was going to be good enough to play. We always have doubters. We have doubters. We had doubters as kids. We have doubters now. And we'll continue to have doubters. We don't have people that want to hate, and that's just what they do. And that's just what they do. And some people celebrate. So people told me that I could never play, and we use that as fuel. We don't forget those. That sits in our gut. It sits in our gut when we have those 4:30, 5:30 in the morning workouts and got to get out. This is driving. It's the driving force. So Auburn they took away my scholarship at that point with that type of I guess tactics or whatever. So it was down to Florida or Alabama. But that was all right because 4 years later that coach was presenting the Atlanta Quarterback Club the Shug Jordan Award for the best offensive lineman in the ACC and the SEC, and I won it. So
what? It always comes full circle like that. It always
does. That's right. That fuel works. And then it was Alabama or Florida. And then my grandfather actually said, Wesley, if you want to be Wesley Britt, this is probably new. I think this was Christmas Eve. My grandfather told me that if you want to be Wesley Britt from Florida, do business in Florida, raise your family in Florida, you need to go to Florida. But if you want to be Wesley Britt from the great state of Alabama, you need to play for the Tide. And that hit home. Hit home. And I walked upstairs and called Steve Spurrier first. And he said, I said, Coach, thank you for the opportunity, but I want to tell you first that I'm going to call Dabo Sweeney, actually, who was recruiting me, and I'm going to commit to the Tide and go to school at the University of Alabama. And he said, it's kind of quiet, and I'm just a senior in high school, and he's kind of quiet. He says, Wesley, got to tell you, I thought you had a lot more class than that. It was vintage head football coach.
Yeah, that is amazing. What a story. It's funny how the more I look at your career and the experiences that you had, it feels like we had similar experiences. Whether that was the recruiting process, both my parents, dad and mom, would just put me in the back of the truck and say, hey, we're going to this camp, we're going to that camp. And, I would spend half the camp playing quarterback, half of it playing receiver, or half of it playing, defensive back, because there were doubters. They said, hey, this kid's too short to play quarterback at the next level. So I totally understand that. But what a story. I know the old ball coach, he is one of my favorite college football figures ever. I remember my very first game starting at Vanderbilt. We were playing against South Carolina, and I still get chills to this day seeing him over on the sideline with his visor on, because I just remember all those great days that they had at Florida back in the day. So that's awesome that you got to have that experience with him and have that relationship with him. As like I said, as I look at your career, we kind of ran parallel in the same way. We were both redshirt guys initially, but then ended up being career starters, but also kind of went through coaching changes while we were in school. As a leader on those Alabama teams, how was it in the locker room during those transitions, during those coaches changes?
Before we get into that, you hit on something I think is we can't leave alone that you talked about was the impact of our families. What Helena and Clarence did for you, and how much they love you and would do anything for you and Colin, for you and your brother. And I had that same thing in my mom and dad. How grateful, how fortunate and blessed are we to have that? And everybody doesn't have that, and we forget, take that for granted. We're blessed to have that.
Oh, I owe them a lot. The sacrifice that they had to go through to make sure that I am where I am today, and to get through every step, every phase of life, because life is like this, right? It's a lot of ups and downs. And for them to be as consistent as they were with me, to make sure that I'm on the right path. I, I can't say enough, how thankful I am for them, for sure.
Yeah, and the example that I try to use for my kids now is we're very blessed. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
No,
Forgive
no,
me.
you're good.
Yeah,
No, you know, essentially what I wanted to bring up was during your time
yeah.
at Alabama, you had to deal with a lot of coach changes.
Oh
There
yeah,
was a transition between coaches, and I kind of ran into a similar situation at Vanderbilt as well. And just as a leader of that ball club, how was it in the locker room? What were some things that you all kind of went through? Having to change coaches. I know that's a
yeah.
very difficult time. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of questions. How did you handle that as a leader?
Right. That was tough. Having four head coaches. I like to tell people that I figured I only wanted to play for one head coach while I was in school, and I figured Spurrier would leave to go to the NFL, which he did. So I went to Alabama and played for four head coaches and three university presidents, 2 years of probation. Uh, the transition taught me a lot, taught us a lot as a team, and brought us together in the locker rooms when we were going through that. You learn a lot, especially as a young player and a young person, just a young human, essentially a kid coming into school and seeing leadership, learning from others' mistakes, and watching and learning from the leaders on the team. And there were, especially with Dubose our first year, coming off in that 99 was my senior year in high school in the SEC championship, and then number 3 in the country preseason, and then going 3-8. That was a tough year. It was a tough locker room. There was division, animosity, but there was also a lot of good too. There were a lot of good and a lot of good folks. But trying just being a part of that, and I was far from being a leader at that point in that locker room, but did have a chance to learn from some good people. Then Dennis Franchione coming in and going through that, and then started my redshirt freshman year, uh, and being a part of that team and growing into a contributor and then to a leader was being part of that team was special. It was I thought we had something good going. We got slapped with some probation in a couple of years of probation based on some players that weren't even there. And I think that's totally different. We could talk for hours about that and that impact and the NCAA and the way that they just mishandled a lot of things that led us to the chaos we have in college football today, I believe. And then going into that with Dennis Franchione, and then essentially in the dark of the night, him leaving. Him leaving after telling us coming back from Hawaii his second year that he wasn't, and then took the job at Texas A&M and just left. Just made me think a lot about leadership and being a man of my word, and also owning up when you have bad news or good news, and something I still practice today. I don't try to get somebody else to deliver my bad news. If I have something, I want to be the one to figure out how to deliver that because of the way that was handled for me at that point in time. Just feel like I owe that to. I feel like I owe that to people, and I felt like I was owed that at that time. So I don't want to return that favor and keep that going. Learned a lot though, and that was a good teams, and we actually had a great locker room. And then going into Shula took over then Price was there for a cup of coffee, and is frowned upon to use the university credit card at some establishments that you should not be. It's
Wow.
but we had a spring training. He was a good guy, a little loose, come from the West Coast, and little loose, but we were having fun. He came in the first team meeting throwing sugar packets up there. The first time we met him as a team, and saying we're
Wow.
going to the Sugar Bowl every year. Every year, and if we're not in the Sugar Bowl, it's going to be because we're in the BCS national championship game. Yeah,
I
and we love that.
I guess that's how you set the tone.
Yeah, and we loved it. Practices were great. Working hard is a new type from Franchione, going from just grinding it out, just beating people down, to airing it out. We had Brody Cruel as quarterback, so it was a perfect system, that West Coast air it out, air raid type offense for Brody. A lot of excitement, and boom, he's gone. He's gone. Then Shula came in. Shula, I couldn't be more grateful for him stepping in at a tough time in the program. People forget about that time. We were at a point as a program that we had to either invest in the program to take it up back to where Alabama football should be and where it is now, or turn it into a second tier program. And the university stepped up, invested. Their donors stepped up, invested in facilities. The team stepped up. We lost in this day of transfer portal. In this day of transfer portal, where everybody's leaving at any point in time, one of the things I'm most proud of is we had. This is before the transfer portal, but because of the probation, coaches change it, and coaching changes, we could have transferred at that time, and we lost not one player to transfers. And that's something I'm most proud of. I remember sitting talking with the players, like, "Hey, let's make a decision to do this, and being part of this being part of this program, being part of something special." And we did that, and
Well,
that's the thing
and
I'm most
Wesley, I
proud
think
of.
Wesley, I really think that's important too. I think that is something that I do want to highlight here is that y'all did not leave. Football is so transferable when it comes to life. When you're going through things in life, there's a lot of things that you can lean on that you went through as an athlete at some point in your life. And, with the transfer portal, these young men are not getting to learn what resiliency is. They're not getting to learn what loyalty is. They're not really invested. They're not, getting their roots any one place. They're just going to the highest bidder. But I do think there is something to, sticking it out. You learn more about yourself. And there's going to be a lot of hard times in life, ups and downs, that when you're playing this game, this is the easiest time, most fun time in your life. But when you start you have wife, you have a kid, you're responsible for so many people, so many different things. You're really tested. And if you don't do that in college as a young man, when your responsibilities are pretty low, how are you going to be able? How are you going to have the expectation to do that as an adult? So I applaud y'all for sticking it out and honestly being the foundation for what Alabama became.
Well, thank you, and well said. There's so much we learn through this sport, and being on campus and making friends, and ultimately, life's not about, especially looking back, it wasn't about any particular accomplishments. It's about friendships, about relationships and experiences. It's about learning accountability and trust, loyalty to something greater than yourself. And if and I'm not against college football players making money. I'm gonna make sure that is, I support that, but I think you can do both and being part of a team, being part of something. The transfer portal, I do have some serious reservations, issues with, because you learn how to pick yourself up by the bootstraps when things are tough.
Mm-hmm.
You learn when I wasn't starting, I was going into my redshirt freshman year when Franchione came in. I was number 2 or 3 on the depth chart, and I busted my rear end every single day to earn that starting job. And where today kids are just transferring.
Yeah.
Like, what are we learning?
What
are we learning?
If the coach yells at you the wrong way, you just get out of town. I mean, it's tough to see. It really is.
I know. I would get a half a can of Copenhagen spit in my face by my offensive line coaches in Alabama. I mean, just every day, just from them yelling at me.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I would like to see, like you said before, NIL, I get it. That is something that we're working through, and athletes should be paid for their image and likeness. But for me, I just think that there has to be some type of red tape put around this whole portal thing. It's getting a little out of control, and it's kind of like the Wild Wild West right now. And I think it's actually hurting the kids more than anything than it is helping them. But speaking of all the coaching changes and transitions, Wesley, isn't it weird to see Coach Saban on game day every Saturday? I mean, it just not seeing him on the sideline just feels weird to me.
I know. I just can't help say, but who is this guy? Why is he so happy? Why
Yeah,
is he smiling on game day?
absolutely. It is incredible
Perfect.
to see. And he's been great. I mean, I didn't realize that someone could be good at so many different things, but he goes from coaching to being an analyst on TV, and he's excellent at that as well. I know you missed Coach Saban by a couple of years as far as playing for him, but were you able to kind of develop a relationship with him after the fact, after you've graduated, or maybe
Yeah.
just going back on campus, as an NFL player? How did that work out for you?
Yes. Man, what he has done for so many young people to help become productive members of society is incredible. I didn't have the chance to play for. I always played against him. I was, from 2000 to '04 is whenever he was. That's whenever I was at Alabama and he was at LSU. And then
Hmm.
he went, and then '05 to '07 he was at Miami Dolphins, and I was with the New England Patriots.
Hmm.
So I always played against him. My younger brother played for him. But one of the things that were most telling to me is whenever I was at the New England Patriots, I played with guys who played for him at LSU, and played with guys, with teammates, friends that played for him at the Miami Dolphins. The people that played for him at the Miami Dolphins weren't the biggest fans of his, just because all the character type drills, speeches, whatever it is, they're given to essentially grown men professionals. The players that played for him at LSU love him, saw him as a
Hmm.
father figure, would do anything, talked about his open door policy, the way that he built into it. The same in this, my brother and my nephew had the same experiences with him. So the way he invests in kids to become men is incredible to me. That is a dying art. He is one of the few coaches out there. Him, Dabo Sweeney, maybe a handful of others, and DeWar seemingly may be in that same boat. Time will tell. Uh, that actually care about student athletes. That when some of these coaches get on there and complain about NIL or portal, I just want to yell at the TV and be like, "You are the portal. You started the portal as a head coach. You leave for an extra dime every time somebody offers you. You've been at 10 schools and never win a championships, and you're complaining about the portal."
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, you're supposed to be
It's
the
kind of backwards,
example.
right?
Yes. But for what he's done for the game of football, what he's done for people, what he's done for the University of Alabama is just incredible. I've had the chance to sit on his board in the past with the Knicks kids, and what he does for children in the community, building homes for families, is real. There's not many people who care about kids and the future of people and the future of our country as much as he does. And he takes what his gifts that he's been good and uses it in the area in which he's been anointed. He's there for a reason, and he's making an impact,
Well,
and he's still doing that.
oh, absolutely. I mean, he's inspiring me. You know, the type of career he's had as a football coach, he could go to a lake house or a beach house and put his feet up and just ride off into the sunset, right? But I'm actually in Washington, D.C. right now, and I ran into him up here. Um, he had an event here talking about NIL and trying to just pass it forward. He has so much knowledge, so much wisdom, and although he could pack it up and go do something else and not be bothered by it, he still wants to be helpful. He wants the next generation to learn, to understand, and to benefit from the hard work that they're putting in now to make sure that college football is left in a great space. And so I really take that to heart because it's like, we're both former, SEC guys, and we still have so much knowledge, so much wisdom. Although we can't run like we used to, we
I
can
never
still
could. You
help.
could.
Yeah, we can still pass it forward, and teach this next generation some things that we learned from great men during our time. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But just to move forward a little bit, we spoke briefly about your time in the NFL. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but rarely can someone say they've shared a field or locker room with three Hall of Fame quarterbacks: Drew Brees, Philip Rivers, and Tom Brady. Is that correct? I
That's
mean,
correct.
how was that? And when you were around these guys, could you just tell up front that they were different, that they were just
Yeah.
going to be something special as their careers continue to progress?
Oh, without a doubt. I got a chance to play with a lot of great athletes and great humans, and those three are just they're different. They're focused on the game. They're focused on people. Their attention. I mean, it's laser focused on being the best. It's laser focused on winning football games. And I think that was even what Tom Brady took to the whole nother level. Was it was about the whole team for him. For him, everybody in the locker room got better because of the way that he handled himself and carried himself in his leadership. He raised, like, we go into Tampa. Whenever he went to Tampa, their defense went from the last in the league to the first.
Mhm.
That's a big part is Brady keeping them off the field, of course, but also just his what he doesn't come out and say it and yell at people, but you can tell what people want to. He demands greatness out of himself, and people take that on. People and they feel like you feel like you're letting him down because you see what he puts into the game. So I was released by the Chargers, and then took a overnight flight, red eye flight from San Diego to Boston, like on a Tuesday, and it was the longest day of my life. Being fired once, in a public way, being on ESPN, tickers, and people back home asking about it, and it was tough, having never felt at anything really. And then going to the New England Patriots, being picked up and going in the locker room. The first person who met me in the locker room was Tom Brady.
Wow.
Scout picked me up at the airport. He came in. He said, "Hey Wesley, my name's Tom Brady. I'm glad you're here. I look forward to you blocking for me. Now let's get ready. Let's get ready for practice. Let's go do this." And we practiced that day. And I'm like, my thought is, yeah, you're Tom Brady. You just won your third Super Bowl last year. We signed my arm. you
Right.
know.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that's the kind of guy he is. I remember getting him sacked one time on Monday Night Football against Minnesota, Jared Allen. And he just looked at me and said, "Come on, Wes, you're better than that. I know you are." Man, I felt like I let somebody punch my mother in the face. You would do anything for that guy, anything.
Yeah.
Just a great leader. Just is different. Still to this day, he texts. Good luck with Katie. We're following you, we're supporting you, rooting for you. Just encouragement
Yeah.
to his teammates.
Yeah.
And he doesn't forget. It's incredible. It's incredible.
That is incredible. I mean, that's one of the best stories that I've heard, and even to this day, just shows you his attention to detail, and the genuine relationships that he does have. So it makes sense that he won as much as he has won, and currently in the space that we're in, he is our GOAT.
Yeah.
Man, that is such an awesome experience that you had. Before we wrap up today, just we all watched the USF game this past weekend.
Mm.
Fortunately, I've always had coaches say it's easy to watch film and correct mistakes after a win, and it is a loss. It wasn't the prettiest game, but what were some of your key takeaways from the USF
Mm. Sloppiness, controlling the ball. I
Alabama
think.
game this past weekend?
Yeah, there was it wasn't our best. It wasn't the cleanest game. I think referees do tend to be more stringent early in the year to kind of set a tone going on, but they took it too far in a couple of things. I think it got in the head of some young players who continued to make mistakes, uh, continued to hold. Then it got in their head and they started having linemen that had bad footwork. We had Reform being the right tackle. I think is once he got a couple of calls and a guy got around him, a good portal guy got around him for a sack. It got in his head, and then his footwork started to break down. And once your footwork and technique breaks down, you're gonna have problems the rest of the night. We had, controlling the ball. We lost a good player for the first half of actually going into Wisconsin game. That's going to be tough with Justin Jefferson. It's going
Incredible
to
athlete.
incredible, but we're going to be fine. We're going to make adjustments, and we're going to win against Wisconsin.
Yeah,
That's
I definitely see that. I think that, um, there, and we've both gone through it when there's a transition of coaches. There is kind of a learning period as well, understanding because when you get the new coaches in, you have a little bit of hesitancy, right? You want to make sure you're doing everything the right way, the way that they
Yeah.
want it to be done, and you don't, and it's way different from last year, and so sometimes you may be thinking more than you are playing, right? And when you're on a football field, you want to be as instinctual as possible.
Right.
So I think as the season goes on, you'll start to see this Alabama team grow into their own. And there's just way too many good athletes on that field for them not to win games.
Yeah.
Including Jalen Milroe and the rest of that offense. I think they're going to be fine. So I truly expect them to continue the winning this year. But I do want to mention the game that Texas had this weekend.
Woo.
This was an eye opener for most of the SEC, most of the country, to go up to Ann Arbor and to handle business the way that they did. I mean, they truly just pushed around the defending national champions. What were your thoughts on that?
Texas looks good. Their quarterback Ewers is he was already good. I mean, throwing dimes against us
Mhm.
2 years ago, and every year since. I mean, he's a great quarterback. The way his reads, the way he was stepping out of the pocket, hitting receivers, his offensive line blocking, the running backs, the defense. I mean, they're a total team. They're gonna be tough for anybody to beat. For anybody to beat.
Yeah,
Impressive. That was my
I
takeaway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they'll be there at the end of the year. In fact, they may end up having to play Alabama at some point. I know they're not on the regular season schedule, but when it comes to playoff time, you got the 12-team playoff. This may be a team that Alabama has to face, but you know what? You rather be getting good later than early. So
Right.
I think Alabama has that to look forward to. But Wesley, I want to thank you so much for your time and for your insight and all the great stories that you had. You were always welcome here at Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. And to our fans out there, you can find us on all socials, all platforms. This will be going up on YouTube here soon. But we want to thank you and we want to wish you a happy weekend. And please tell the wife and the kids we say hello and give them our best, please.
Thank you, CJ. And you please do the same. Roll Tide.
See you soon, man.